who have been so helpful to us in videotaping some of the instructional pieces that we've been able to show you today. She, like all the gymnasts, has felt many pressures, sometimes even thought of quitting. We asked her what that time was like in her career.
Well, I did think about quitting, and I knew that I couldn't do that. And the reason why that I thought about quitting is because gymnastics wasn't going very well at the time, and I couldn't, like, get myself going. But then after talking to my dad, who helps me a lot, he said, you know, it'd be kind of dumb. It would be wasteful because you're very talented and you don't need to quit. I mean, you have everything going for you. Just get your head screwed on.
Now, live, Hope Spivey mounts the balance beam. She already on the uneven bars has a 9.725, a 9.825 on the vault, and in the compulsories on balance, she had a 9.75. So she's been very consistent and right in the middle of this race. It would really take a major collapse for her to lose her standing right now, and there's a major break.
Well, this has been her nemesis, the balance beam. She has had her nerves under control for the most part, but if any event you would predict her to have a break, it would be on the balance beam.
Kathy, how would that affect her score?
Well, it will cost her 0.5 of a point. And right now her job is to just maintain control throughout the rest of the routine, which is hard to do when you've had a big break.
Third place after the second rotation.
Oh, slight break there, too. She already has about 0.7 of a point in deduction.
Amazing, don't you think, that someone could even think about quitting and then put in the effort good enough to at least be at the level where you could make the Olympic team?
I think everybody thinks of it every now and then because of the pressure, but when it comes right down to making that decision, most don't quit.
Our step at the end, that'll cost her another 10th. And this could be a critical score for Hope Spivey, coached by Bill and Donna Strauss of the Parkettes in Pennsylvania.
Once again, that balance beam is only 4 inches wide. Any slight movement to the right or left, just slightly off, even an inch, can cost you. You can see that her hips and shoulders look right in the middle of the beam, but just got off at the very end there. Her hips went slightly to the right. Her dismount obviously is a secure one. She has to fit both feet on that 4-inch apparatus. And the judges will not take off for that leg separation.
And these are the most anxious of moments for the gymnasts like Hope Spivey. They've made an error. They just don't know how bad it is and just how badly it has hurt their chances to make the Olympic team. We'll find out in a moment. 1.88 is bad news to Hope Spivey, but it could have been worse. It still is good enough to allow her to maintain her third place standing right now as the top 6. Remember, I say it throughout the afternoon, they are the ones who will get a chance to go to Seoul and represent the United States. We're going to take a moment to focus on a situation that has really crowded the women's gymnastics scene for 4 years. In '84, Don Peters was the Olympic coach, and Bella Caroli, you remember him reaching over the wall to hug Mary Lou Retton. Well, Bella's still here, and so is Don, and they have not been able to resolve their differences. They have different philosophies about coaching. But this is only one of the situations that involves the USGF that we really think deserves a closer look. Bella Caroli, Don Peters, and much, much more as far as gymnastics is concerned.
Right now we are facing a chaos. I feel it, I read it, I wondered, I am embarrassed, and I don't believe that's right.
Opposing views and dispute. Bella Caroli is involved in only one of the USGF's problems right now. He was the coach of Nadia and Mary Lou and of others who will play a large part of this year's Olympic team. His wife is an Olympic assistant, and he is not. The head man there is Don Peters, the '84 Olympic coach, a qualified man who was elected to the post using the current USGF system, and one of many who disagree with the way Caroli operates his big-money gymnast factory. Yet Bella was the most successful coach available based on individual results. Yet his declarations that he will not go to Seoul have created tension.
I think that the controversy has been pushed because someone wants to push it, and I think that they should stop pushing and get behind the team and let's get this thing going.
Is that someone, Bella?
Yeah.
I know probably the most, and I'm the most entitled person to push those little buttons, but nobody knows where, when, and how manner, in which manner you have to push. If I would go out there and I face, the opposition and that very, very, very against and very, very aggressive feeling of the coaching staff who right now is in charge with the leadership of the team, I believe I would more hurt them than help them.
USGF Executive Director Mike Jackie had proposed to the selection committee with no result a system that would have rewarded Bella's and other coaches' success rates. He hopes to reach a compromise after the trials, but that may be the least of his problems. The LA Times has reported that the U.S. Justice Department is reviewing documents it received from 4 or 5 disgruntled members of the gymnastic community, allegedly detailing a variety of financial misdealings inside the USGF, which has tax-free status and says it is aware of accounting problems and is trying to computerize its system to correct them while denying other charges. Meanwhile, the tug-of-war and review continues, and while it is not hard to believe that the ones hurt most are the ones who sacrifice the most for gymnastics.
They can say that they're not a part of it and they're trying to stay out of it and not be involved and not be affected. But when the people that they depend on create so much controversy surrounding the team and their efforts, it does affect their performance.
The USGF is not the only amateur federation in this country with problems. They're faced with good, hard-working people whose good intentions sometimes go off course. Now, the man who gave Bella Caroli the delegation leader status, the honorary member, the figurehead role, if you will, that he turned down and said then and he wouldn't go to Seoul, is Mike Jackie, the executive director of the USGF. And he now joins Frank Gifford. Frank?
Thank you, Alan. Mike has joined me here in our host booth. And Mike, you have a rather large forum. Your response to the allegations, the well-publicized allegations of mishandling of the funds. Let's start there.
Well, first of all, Frank, I think it's important to say that those monies are non-taxable. They're generated in local areas, in regional areas, and they're kept in those areas. They are grassroots monies that come from cakewalks and sales and bake sales and entry fees for local meets. None of the money comes to the Federation office. We'd like to report that money because it falls on the good side of our non-for-profit. But at the end of any small gymnastics meet that may take place, there's a few dollars left over. It's used in the local area to support continuing gymnastics programs. It's really difficult to account for those monies. Our Big 8 accounting firm has told us they don't know if it should be our responsibility or the state's responsibility. We're aware of it. We've been looking into it for a couple of years, and we'll continue to look into it and decide what's best.
I don't want to raise any paranoia, but most federations are in the same boat. How come you?
Well, I think maybe we're in the limelight right now, but I think not only not only sports federations, I think all volunteer-based organizations in the country are probably in a very similar situation.
Of course, the big thing is going to be resolving the coaching situation you have. There's no question there is a tremendous rift between Don Peters and Bella Caroli. We are just a few weeks from the start of the Olympics. What do you plan to do? How do you plan to resolve this?
Well, I think that you've got to look at Bella and Don as two very intense and very competitive individuals. All of the elite coaches are that way. I think when the chalk dust clears at the end of the competition and we have finally identified the 6 athletes, I think our Olympic coaching staff and the personal coaches of those 6 athletes will be able to get together and be able to decide what will be the very, very best way that we can prepare those 6 kids. At that point in time, everything has to be pushed aside, and there's only one consideration, that's preparation.
So, Mike, Bella Caroli could come in. There were 4 or 5 of his own athletes. Wouldn't you be better advised, or wouldn't our federation be better served, or the team better served, if he were the head coach? And is that possible?
I don't know if it's possible, and I don't think that's the important thing, whether or not he's head coach. I think most importantly is that we give those athletes the preparation they deserve, and it means that Bella Caroli needs to be intimately involved. Then he should be intimately involved in this federation's position to make sure that happens.
He says he will not go to Seoul unless there is a change. You say he's going to be there, and we have a hard time resolving this.
We will make sure it's resolved. It's in the sportsman's interest, the United States' best interest, and most importantly, the 4 or 5 or however many kids that Bella puts on the team, it's in their best interest. We can't let anything else sacrifice the performance of those athletes.
Do you have a time and a place, perhaps even a date, or in the near future, that you plan to get the 2 coaches together and make a decision?
I think in the immediate future, as soon as the event's over and we know those athletes, we will address it directly and immediately.
Okay. Any chance of Tim Dyke going as an honorary coach?
We'd sure like to have that happen, and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for joining us. Mike Jackie, the executive director of the United States Gymnastics Federation. And we'll be back in Salt Lake in just a moment.